we're not educating people about Bitcoin. We're basically buying a piece of real estate, merging some Bitcoin with it like a gift. It still cash flows. And we're telling our investor audience, hey, by the way, the real estate comes with Bitcoin. You can come to Vegas and speak, and I'm going to give you Bitcoin. It's a gift. Like if you're going to give somebody something, they're probably not going to turn it down, even though they don't understand it. And so I still have that Bitcoin today. It was probably it was the single best speaking gig I've ever done in my life. Because whatever 115 times 116 or 117 is, a decent speaking gig. So what I did was I watched it for 3 or 4 years. And then over the last, 10 years or so, I've been quietly buying it. Keep in mind, I'm a real estate guy and we do education. We own a health company. We own a consulting company that consults HVAC, roofing, plumbers, chiropractors, dentists, roofers, to grow and scale their business. Construction companies, we help them scale their business, furniture businesses, auto sales. We help them scale the top line of their company and put their operations in place. So I didn't want to be out there talking to people about Bitcoin and confuse the conversation. So I was quietly buying it. Just like with my health, okay? My health, I went on a huge commitment when I was 61 years old about getting myself back in shape. I didn't tell anybody anything. I slowly started working on myself. And then the next thing you know, I bought a company to support me in my health. And then I scaled the company out. And then I started talking about it to promote people in line with something I was doing. And not to confuse my audience, but we took a company that had 60 customers and they have 256,000 customers now and did it in 3 or 4 years. So I did the same thing with the Bitcoin. Like I started adding Bitcoin to my positions in real estate slowly, not telling anybody I was doing it. Basically, I'm eating my own dog food. I'm buying a product that I would offer to other people, testing on myself before I unleash it on the marketplace. So that was my introduction to Bitcoin. Gary got involved with it. We would talk occasionally about it. He was orange pilled before I was. He said something to me once about, you should look at your cash distributions. Or actually, he said to me, I wish you'd have been paying me the cash distributions for my real estate in Bitcoin. And so I went on Hold'em, one of the sites, and I programmed, hey, if I would have paid $100,000 a month since 2013, because I paid myself $100,000 a month. I actually paid myself $1.6 million a month from the real estate cash flow. And I plugged that number in. I'm like, I'd be worth $44 billion. And then I'm like, okay, I'm going to start converting my cash flow from my real estate and buying Bitcoin. I slowly started doing this until this year when we created our first fund of real estate and Bitcoin. So that's kind of my short story. I haven't read the white paper. I have not done 100 hours. Maybe I have. I doubt it. I've met with Mike Saylor a couple of times. I believe in Bitcoin. Mostly because I don't believe in dollars or paper. And most real estate guys, Robin, don't believe in cash. They don't, because that's why they take their cash and convert it to a real asset. And I believe that real estate people and Bitcoin people have a lot of things in common. The kind of real estate we buy, like this piece of real estate right here is in Boca Raton. Okay. It's best in class, but the location is ridiculous. The location is one of a kind. Like there's 21 million Bitcoin or maybe 18 million left. There's only one of those properties in that location. There's a bunch of similar properties, but there's only one in that spot. And there will only ever be one in that spot. So real estate people like scarcity. They believe in that, right? They like hard to rebuild. Very, very expensive to rebuild that asset. And it would take 3 or 4 years. So these are the similarities between the real estate and the Bitcoin, that they're scarce, they're real. One's digital, by the way. They have this yin-yang kind of relationship. One's real, one's digital. Okay. One cash flows, one doesn't. One is very stable. One's like a maniac. In fact, the audience that owns it, if it's not maniacal, they become bored with it. So I put these two things together, right? It's a hybrid of personalities that I believe create this superhuman or super power kind of asset class. And we've done 12 this year already. So we already have 12 of these funds done. And I'm working on taking the company public now here at the end of the year. So that's my short version of my 12 years learning about Bitcoin.
It's super interesting. And it's also for me interesting to hear that there's those two things kind of come together. And a lot of the things that you said like really resonate, because you have like real estate, you don't have a second exactly price, and it's not like you immediately liquid, but it also has like this advantages and disadvantages, and like they are like this yin and yang kind of a thing. One thing I'm also curious is for my parents' generation, basically like, I don't know, 40 to like 60 years old, something like that. They see, especially in Austria, but I think also around the world, they see real estate kind of as their savings vehicle. Not my parents, but like my parents' generation. So they just save in the real estate. They get the 20% down somehow, and they pay their mortgage for like 30 years, 20 years, whatever the time frame there is. And I kind of see it for Gen Z, kind of for the normal Gen Z that aren't the entrepreneurial types or like the mainstream Gen Z type, it's impossible. I don't know a single person in my generation here in Austria that owns a real estate property, and which is crazy. And I kind of see Bitcoin maybe as the real estate opportunity of my generation. Is there something to that thought that you see, like, okay, maybe Bitcoin is the vehicle for the new generation?
Yeah, look, there's two parts of that conversation in my mind. One is, the single family home is, when we were growing up, that was supposedly an asset that you invested in it, even though it didn't belong on your financial statement. It was an asset. You lived in it and you put money down 20%, and you paid it off over the next 30 years. And then it becomes a piece of equity, right? Well, yeah, maybe, but not really. Okay. It's not really an asset because you're having to live in it. Really, a house is a utility. It is not an asset. Okay. Now the fact that none of your generation owns any real estate, okay, they still live in something. They're paying for something because they have to. You can't live in your Bitcoin. So in my generation, it was sold to us worldwide, by the way, around the world, that a home is, you deserve one. And if you buy it, it's an investment. It's not an investment. It's a trap of equity, because any of that money would have been better off. The 20% your parents put down on a $400,000, 400,000 pounds, whatever it was, they put $80,000 down that's dead, earning nothing. And then they feed the other 340,000 or whatever the number would be. They feed that for 30 years at 6 or 7 or 8%, plus the property taxes, plus the maintenance, plus all the issues and the problems. And they lost their mobility. That doesn't sound like an investment to me. It sounds like jail. The Bitcoin, on the other hand, for your generation, they still have to pay rent. They're going to have to pay rent. They're going to have to live somewhere. Now, if you go back to your parents, if your parents would have been offered, to put 20% down on a $400,000 house, 80,000, if they'd have put another 2% down and made their down payment 88,000 rather than 80, and 8,000 of it bought Bitcoin. It bought whatever, how many Satoshis would that buy? I don't know, but, and they would have blended the two together. Okay. At 15 years or 13 years into that mortgage, they would have had enough liquidity from the tiny bit of Bitcoin they bought. It would have only cost them maybe $56 a month on the extra 8,000 they borrowed. On a home equity loan, by the way, which is typically cheaper credit than a business loan or a credit card or a margin call, they would have had liquidity the entire time while they owned that home. Okay. It's not easy to sell a house. If your parents wanted to sell their house today, it might not sell for 9 months or 18 months. So, I don't know that Bitcoin is the real estate investment that we were sold. I think they're very different in that way. You know, I would not compare the two. I think they work together better than they work separate. And I think your generation needs a place to live. And I also believe in the next 3 or 4 or 5 years, we're going to have a massive monster real estate boom on this planet, because it's going to become more and more expensive to build this stuff. You're not going to beat that. You're not going to fix the problem with building housing. And even if 3D printing comes about tomorrow and you can start building homes in 3 hours for a tenth of the price, if that happens, the cost of the land where you drop the 3D printing is going to explode, because now it's going to be, housing's cheap to build, but that piece of land in the perfect location is going to become even more valuable to the person that owns it.
And this is what you're doing with the real estate Bitcoin REIT that we talked about before, where you combine Bitcoin with real estate.
Yeah, and we're not buying single family homes either. We're not buying places where one little house where, you know, you get married, you move in, and you have 2 kids. This dream, this fairy tale that we tell people. These are large apartment complexes with 200, 300 units, massive swimming pools, beautiful gyms. You can walk across the street and get your food. It's got security on it. It's got a gym bigger than a gym you can go join down the street. You probably have yoga teachers underneath the, massage places. Like, you have all this retail connected to this. It's a community. It's not a home. And people can live together in community and literally pay rent every month. They could stay there 14 months or 14 years. It's their choice. They're not stuck. It didn't require down payment. It didn't require a 30-year commitment. And if you don't like the way the people treat you, you can leave. Now, it is rent. Okay. It is rent. And a lot of people are like, I don't want to rent. I want to own a home. Okay. Well, then go buy a house. It'll cost double on a mortgage. And you have all the maintenance and the obligation, and you're stuck for 29 years. So in America, in the top 20 cities, except for 2 cities, it's cheaper to rent than it is to own by 50%. So it's actually a better investment in America to rent than it is to own, and take the difference of the money, rather than buying a house in America in those 20 cities. It would be a better investment to take the 20% down payment that you would use to get a mortgage and go invest in the S&P 500 or, the Magnificent Seven or Bitcoin or almost any coin. It would be a better investment to use that down payment to pay rent over here and use the equity to invest in something that's liquid and more volatile and has more upside than a single family house.
It's super interesting. I hear that from basically everyone that invests in real estate, that you should rent, that you privately should rent, but buy real estate as a company and as a business. Basically, it's super fun to see.
Yeah, rent where you live, and then use the difference to go buy real estate that cash flows. So that's what we do. We buy real estate that cash flows, large complexes. Let's say there's 300 units and 270 people are constantly renting 300 of the units, and it's cash flow positive. We add Bitcoin to that purchase. So if the deal was $100, we just add another 100 and add $100 of real estate, $100 of Bitcoin. We get income from it, or 100 million and 100 million, whatever the number is, 10 million and 10 million. We add that. We rent it to the tenants. We still cash flow positive. We use the cash flow to continue to buy more Bitcoin each month. And then we have these 2 beautiful assets blended together that both are necessary. Money is being destroyed. because of the printing press. It will continue to print. No country has a way not to print money again. Like China will print again. Europe will print again. America will continue to print. We all print. There's no world where we don't print more. And the more you print, the more real assets go up in value.
I want to get a feeling for how, and I think is a question that probably a lot of people will ask in the comments later on, of how big of an allocation Bitcoin is already for you. Obviously, like you have a lot of real estate, but now if you add like from the real estate also always the same part of Bitcoin on there, your Bitcoin allocation and portfolio probably will rise quite significantly.
Yeah, so we I wish I had this pie chart to show you. Like there's two questions you're asking me. One, the first one I'm not going to answer. My allocation personally. A better way for me to tell you how committed I am to the asset, both assets, by the way. I'm not getting rid of my real estate. I was in a room once on Spaces on X, and somebody said, Grant, you should get rid of all your real estate and buy Bitcoin. I'm like, I have a $5 billion real estate portfolio. It took me 20 years to build it. Okay. Like, should I also get rid of my education company that does $100 million a year? Should I get rid of my health company that does $150 million a year? Should I get rid of my consulting company too? Like, should I get rid of my wife and kids and replace them with Bitcoin? Like, this is ridiculous. Like Bitcoin cannot be the only asset on the planet. So I'm not getting rid of my businesses. My businesses create fiat. Okay. And I use the fiat. I take the fiat and I invest in other assets that are better than the fiat. My clients don't get paid in Bitcoin, so they're not going to give me Bitcoin for my services. That's just not happening at scale on planet Earth. So I take fiat. I don't know why people complicate this. You go hustle fiat. You get somebody to give you $100 and convert it to something better than $100. Gold, silver, stocks. I mean, I don't like the paper to paper, right? I'd rather go paper, improve the paper. I'd rather take a piece of paper, a pound, and convert it to something better than that, which if I go to certificates or pieces of paper, unless I'm an insider in the deal, that piece of paper is just another piece of paper. You follow me? Unless I'm an insider.
Yeah, like stocks as a paper, like an IOU basically.
If I'm creating the piece of paper and taking a company public, I'm an insider, and I don't mind that conversion because that's better. I created that piece of paper, right? The U.S. government did, or the Fed. So I'm trying to convert a piece of paper into something better than paper, which is cement, glass, steel, NVIDIA, Bitcoin, gold, silver, anything. Now I don't do gold and silver. I don't do stocks. I do a couple of things and I do them over and over and I beat them to death. In real estate, the most important number in real estate, and I'm getting off of your question right now, and I'll go back to it. But the most important number in real estate is not the cap rate or the price you paid or the ROI or the cash on cash return. The most important number in real estate is the number of units. Guess what? The most important number in Bitcoin is not how much it sells for today. The most important number is not your cost basis. The most important number in Bitcoin is how many units do you own? If you're starting with Satoshis, it's going to be 1 Satoshi, 10 Satoshis, 100 million, boom, 1 Bitcoin, 2 Bitcoins, 10 Bitcoins, 100. If it's going to go up, the most important number you will have is how many units you have. Okay, period. It won't be the price you paid to get in it. If it's going to go up. So the number of units is your scaling number. McDonald's, Coca-Cola, Google, Facebook, these companies, NVIDIA, these companies are monster. Disney tickets. They're monster companies because of the number of units, not the quality of their product. So now, what percentage of my portfolio or my net worth, I'm not going to answer, but I will tell you this. When we just did a $230 million asset. Let me see if they can bring me this. Call Andres. I might have it on my phone here to show it to you. We bought a $230 million asset, 66 units, and we took 230 and added $100 million of Bitcoin. Okay, now that would look like 50% of the real estate, but really it's 1/3 real estate, 1/3 debt on the real estate, good debt, and 1/3 Bitcoin. That's our commitment on that deal. A third, a third, and a third. A third debt, a long-term 5-year mortgage at 5%. I'm getting 5% money that cash flows and buys me more Bitcoin. Okay, and the pie chart will start out. Let's see if I can show you this. The pie chart will start out where it looks like a half Bitcoin and half real estate, because the mortgage isn't counted. When you look at the equity in the deal, it's going to be a half and a half. But by the time 5 years goes by, it's probably going to be 90% Bitcoin.
Thank you for watching this video. This was only a snippet of the podcast. And if you want to watch the full episode and get all of the context of this episode, you can click right here or here. Oh, maybe also here.